New Testament readers, welcome to week 19. In this week, we are going to continue in the Gospel of John. We're going to get almost a quarter of the way into the book as we do so. Now, let's talk about some things to notice in John's Gospel as we're doing this reading. First of all, you're going to notice in these early chapters that we'll see a lot of attention given to John the Baptist. All of it designed to do what we've already seen, and that is to say that John has an important place in what God is doing, but he's pointing to Jesus. Anyone in the time that this gospel was written who was thinking, it's just okay if you just follow John the Baptist and you don't worry about Jesus, well, this is saying something very different about that. Jesus is the one who fulfills God's promises. We'll see one of Jesus' miracles. This passage, actually, we'll get to a second one as well. And John is going to refer to Jesus' miracles as signs. And there's really a series of these signs from chapter 2 until Jesus' resurrection in chapter 20. And as we read those, we're going to see how John calls these miracles signs because he wants to emphasize that they signify, they show us who Jesus is and what he does to bring God's blessing to his people. So we'll read about the wedding feast at Cana and about Jesus restoring a paralyzed man by the pool of Bethesda. You'll see reference here to Jesus' time or his hour, depending on the translation that you read. This is a recurring theme in John's gospel. Jesus' time or hour is nothing mysterious as we read the book. It's when Jesus truly brings God's kingdom into the world, when he truly inaugurates it. So he'll say to his mother, "This is not my time," when he's at the wedding feast, meaning what I'm doing here is not the thing that I'm going to do that brings salvation into the world, but it is a sign, we'll see. It points to that in the way that he's providing for these people. When we get to Jerusalem, Philip is going to bring some Gentiles to Jesus, and then he's going to say, now my time, now my hour has come. And it's time for the Son of Man to be lifted up, to be exalted, by which he means his crucifixion. We're going to see a lot more of Jesus' activity in Jerusalem in the Gospel of John than we did in the Synoptics. In the Synoptics, Jesus only goes to Jerusalem at the end, but John shows us that Jesus is going repeatedly. As he does, he has exchanges with his opponents, and we'll see how those sharp exchanges give Jesus occasion to really explain himself, though he always does so in hard sayings, just like he did in the Synoptic Gospels. There's a bit of unpacking to do in Jesus' teaching. His teaching is surprising. He needs that method to really get our attention and to stimulate our imaginations. There's a lot of attention in John's Gospel to the temple. John moves the story of Jesus' action in the temple where he casts out the money changers. He moves that to the beginning of the story so we can think about it through the whole story. And he shows us Jesus saying, destroy this temple and I will rebuild it in 3 days. Where he says the temple is really his own body, and he's talking about his resurrection. Well, that's right. And later on in this section, when Jesus is talking to the Samaritan woman, she'll say, well, which one is the true temple? The one where you Jews worship in Jerusalem, or the one where we Samaritans worship in Mount Gerizim? Because this was the main way that Samaritans and Jews differentiated themselves. And Jesus will say, well, as it happens, salvation is from the Jews. Jerusalem is the temple, but the time is coming and now is when those who worship will worship in spirit and truth. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. When we put all this together, we really see what we also saw in the Synoptic Gospels, and that is Jesus is saying, I'm the true temple. I am the one who brings the fulfillment. If God promised David that his great son would build the true house of God, I am that true son, and I am that true house as well. So wherever my spirit is, wherever my word is, that becomes a sacred place. God is taking back the whole world to be his temple. Now, in this section, you're going to see two private conversations between two very different people, a leading teacher of the Jews and a woman who is in a very lowly, shameful place among the Samaritans. And of course, Samaritans and Jews, as cousins and rivals to the claims of Israel, didn't get along. So notice the difference in the way that Jesus addresses the high and the low. With the one, he's giving a challenge to give up the things that you hold to for security. With the low, he's saying, I've come for you. I have something to offer you. All along the way in John's gospel, not in this section yet, but coming up as we'll go in next week, we'll see Jesus using expressions where in John where he says, I am. And those deliberately echo the way God identified himself in Exodus chapter 3. I am that I am. And with these I am statements, Jesus is making statements about himself where he's really claiming authority and status and power that belong only to God. Very, very important. So, as you're reading, just ask yourself, how is John's gospel expanding my view of Jesus? How is it showing me Jesus fulfilling the story of God with Israel in the Old Testament and addressing the deepest of human needs? So, enjoy your reading in John's gospel, and God bless you as you do.